Hey, this is Doug Field, along with my co-host Ron Bachman, and welcome back to this segment of Healthcare Consumers and Radio. We were to have Joe Jackson, CEO of WageWorks, on, but Joe had a slight emergency come up. But we've got more than a capable replacement and a friend of the Institute, WageWorks Chief Compliance Officer, Jody Dietel. Jody, good morning.
Good morning, Doug. How are you?
We're doing well. Good to have you on the program, Jody.
Thank you.
And I hope things are well with Joe. We were going to talk about kind of celebrating 10 years of health savings accounts, but even before we do that, give our audience kind of a snapshot of WageWorks.
WageWorks is a leading consumer-directed benefit account provider, and so we serve national employers, probably 27,000 employers nationwide, 2.8 million consumer-directed benefit account holders. So we're very excited about our progress and our reach and our ability to help consumers by making it easy and help employers achieve their goals as well.
I know we've talked about this before. You're excited about what's ahead in this marketplace too. Can you kind of talk about that and what WageWorks sees?
We sure are. Joe often says, we're only just getting started, and we believe that's definitely the case. While a lot of people were concerned about the impact of the Affordable Care Act, we've just seen it as an opportunity to talk with employers to help them achieve their goals, to both improve and help maintain their individual participant health status, and certainly to develop a comprehensive consumer-directed benefit account strategy. That and the activity we're seeing in the whole exchange space is just a very exciting time for us and for certainly the entire industry.
The latest reports coming out of this fall, as we look back on the 10-year anniversary of HSAs, I think we can all be, proud of where that's come, but yet it was still a small percent of the market. And then I was in a meeting this week that said, according to this fall's enrollment figures, that we're going over the 20% market penetration with HSAs, which is kind of makes your point that of the impact of private exchanges. Ron and I talked about a little earlier on this program about HSAs coming out of the public exchanges, when they work. And then, we see a lot of full replacement programs being put in place, by employers. They're not going to exchanges, but they're putting in place, these full replacement HSA programs.
I think that's absolutely the case, and I think part of it is, the original design of the consumer-directed HSA, high-deductible health plan paired with an HSA, it's a little bit complex, and so there's a little bit more wood to chop, both in terms of employers understanding the nature of it, employees, and then helping to communicate to families. And I think that this is a market that's maturing quickly, and then certainly the price pressure too. So, one of the goals of the Affordable Care Act was to engage the consumer, and I think that's absolutely happening as people are really seeing the price, seeing the different designs, and how they can kind of get into the driver's seat to move ahead.
Jody, it's Ron Bachman. A lot of the listeners out there probably either have an HSA, have been thinking about it, maybe ready to implement if they haven't. Can you tell them what makes for a successful program when you're using health savings accounts? Is it the employer putting some money in along with employees putting it in? Is it the ability to have incentives add to the account? What are some of the items that make it most successful?
From my perspective, I think that it's any combination of those, any of those items that help to really mitigate some of the employer's concerns and their strategic objectives to help them achieve their strategic objectives. So certainly when an employer has the budgetary room and the ability to add to the account to help fund that account, particularly when they're moving to a full replacement, that's very advantageous. But I think there's been a lot more traction lately with some of the studies that talk about the amount of money employees need at retirement to fund their out-of-pocket costs. So with that, I think there's just been this huge kind of PR awareness that, look, I need $250,000 to pay out-of-pocket expenses. Some studies say a little less, some say a little more, depending on age and health status, to pay for my out-of-pocket health care expenses at retirement. And so health savings account is a great opportunity for people to kind of get to that level. I think secondly, we're seeing kind of the maturing of the HSA market. Remember that there's so many criteria with an HSA. One, it requires qualified high-deductible health plan coverage. Two, it requires no other impermissible coverage. And so we see a lot of employers really being strategic about their design. There are some, particularly in San Francisco or some of the areas where there's a large retiree population from the military who may be covered by TRICARE. They're all ineligible under current law for an HSA. So we see employers just really moving to kind of the next level, and some of those employees are offered flexible spending accounts in addition. Certainly the proliferation of wellness incentives, which can be added to an HSA or an HRA or FSA. I mean, all of those kinds of vehicles, it's very important for an employer to really be savvy and think about what best meets their demographics. So all of those components, I think, are kind of converging in a perfect storm to help people use HSAs in particular to achieve their goals.
Now, you're talking about fairly large dollar amounts for retiree needs. That means accumulating a lot of money over the working life for most cases, $250,000. As people are accumulating more and more dollars now that we're in the 10th year, some people have been doing this for 10 years and accumulating some dollars. What are you seeing, and how do people make investments of those dollars that they're continuing to carry over? Is there a plan where they can invest in certain mutual funds or make selections of various investment options that you have available for them?
Yes, and certainly that varies by custodian, but there are several very wide ranges of investment opportunities, and employees really can choose to be on the aggressive side or more conservative side with their investments. But we're seeing, again, as that whole investment market has matured as well, I think people are being much more savvy investors, and certainly the stock market's done, pretty well in the last year or so. I think we're seeing some of those balances accumulate for those people that are in mutual funds.
So you're seeing the HSA accumulations with any particular segment of the employee group? Is it the executives that are doing more, or the middle management, the workers of the group? Does it vary as to how much is being accumulated based upon maybe the income of the individual to start with?
Well, I think that, again, it really depends on how the employer has structured their program. I think for the really savvy employers that give their employees, much more latitude, in some cases those lower paid employees might they might have impermissible coverage because they have a spouse with other coverage or something like that, and they might be using a health FSA because they have chronic conditions and they really need those dollars available on day one. But we do see the accumulation of HSA dollars across all income strata, and that's been very exciting, and I think that's as a result of our real efforts to communicate and make sure that employees understand effectively how they can structure and kind of get themselves in the driver's seat to really direct their health benefit savings, their health benefit expenditures.
So there are two dynamics that I hear in the marketplace, if you could try to tie that together for our listeners. One is with all these new health care benefits that are required under Obamacare, the prices seem to be going up. At least that's what we hear in the news, that insurance is more and more expensive. And yet the second thing is that the most affordable options, even though these more expensive products, seem to be the bronze or the silver plans, in many cases HSA eligible plans. Are people really going to, you think, continue to have the extra dollars to put into the HSA if their premiums are going up?
Well, I think that is why you're seeing a lot of, consumers are extremely price sensitive. So a lot of people shop for coverage. For many Americans still, this is the first time that they're aware of the real price of their health care. It's always been kind of a shock to me that people seem to value their daily Starbucks more than they do their health care. And I think that, that's one really good thing about Obamacare and about the Affordable Care Act is that employees and consumers are seeing the real price. And I think when faced with those kinds of consumer decisions, people are going to be very price sensitive and compare their benefits. So I think that's absolutely going to drive HSA eligible coverage. Whether they have additional dollars, I think you'll probably see lesser adoption this year than next year, and that's because I think this, particularly in the exchanges and even some of the private exchanges, this is the first time that consumers have had the opportunity to really shop for plans. And they might be a little bit more conservative or judicious about setting aside dollars. But as education gets better, as they understand and get more comfortable with the shift, I think that you'll see greater and rapid adoption of health savings accounts as well.
Yeah, Jody, talk about private exchanges for a little bit and the emergence of defined contribution funding, which is not new, but it seems to marry well with some of the private exchanges. What do you see out there?
What we're seeing is that a private exchange is a great opportunity for employers to also incorporate some strategic wellness components. Mm-hmm. And so in many cases, the private exchange design we're seeing is that it is a healthcare plan that's paired with a HRA mm-hmm. or health savings account component, usually also with wellness incentives. And that really helps an employer to drive a cohesive strategy that's really critical in keeping down costs, which is kind of going to, drive the success of the private exchange defined contribution model as well. And so I think we're seeing most of the, sophisticated and kind of best-in-class private exchange designs to be this very integrated component with health savings accounts, or in some cases HRA designs, where there's a higher deductible plan or a qualified HDHP that is married then with this consumer-directed benefit account, whether it be an HRA or HSA, that will help the employee to drive their kind of savings and that consumer-directed behavior that we all know works so well.
Right. Because if it's not a complete integrated solutions, the danger with an exchange model is you will create better buyers of insurance, but really not better consumers of health and health care.
Exactly. And that's why, I think it's so important to really, private exchange is sort of the buzzword of the day.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing, I've never seen a faster growing industry or rebranding of a current concept. And I think that, it's really going to be easy over the next year to kind of, see who the sophisticated and the best-in-class players are by the effectiveness of their strategy and their design.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Well, Jody, we've got about a minute to go here, and first of all, I appreciate you taking the time and joining us today, and want to give you a chance to kind of leave our audience with a couple takeaways.
I think the most important takeaway is that we all need to be in the driver's seat, and we can't sit back anymore. It's mm-hmm. really important. It's been a very complicated year. I call all of this that's going on Chief Compliance Officer's Job Security Act because it is a very complex time. And I think the second thing is that consumer-directed benefit accounts, they've been a real winner under Affordable Care. If you look at not only the proliferation of health savings accounts, some of the clarity and guidance wellness incentive accounts, the wellness initiatives under Affordable Care, and then my personal success story, the modification to use it or lose it through the issuance of the carryover guidance. I think that all speaks well for FSAs, HRAs, HSAs, and any of the other consumer-directed benefit account structures that are coming forth. And so it's just a very bright outlook for the coming years.
We agree. Jody, listen, thank you so much. Enjoy the holidays, and hope to see you at Forum here in Atlanta in May. Take care.
You will. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Our audience, stay tuned for the next segment, Healthcare Consumerism Radio.